religious as well as a social system. On its religious side, it consists of the relations of mutual respect and consideration between a person and his totem, and on the social side it is composed of obligations of the members of the clan towards each other and towards other tribes. In the later history of totemism these two sides show a tendency to part company. The social system often survives the religious, and conversely remnants of totemism remain in the religion of countries in which the social system based upon totemism has disappeared. In the present state of our ignorance about the origin of totemism we cannot say with certainty how these two sides were originally combined, but there is on the whole a strong probability that in the beginning the two sides of totemism were indistinguishable from each other. In other words, the further we go back the clearer it becomes that a member of a tribe looks upon himself as being of the same genus as his totem, and makes no distinction between his attitude towards the totem and his attitude towards his tribal companions. In the special description of totemism as a religious system, Frazer lays stress on the fact that the members of a tribe assume the name of their totem and also as a rule believe that they are descended from it. It is due to this belief that they do not hunt the totem animal or kill or eat it, and that they deny themselves every other use of the totem if it is not an animal. The prohibitions against killing or eating the totem are not the only taboos affecting it. Sometimes it is also forbidden to touch it and even to look at it. In a number of cases the totem must not be called by its right name. Violation of the taboo prohibitions which protect the totem is punished automatically by serious disease or death. Specimens of the totem animals are sometimes raised by the clan and taken care of in captivity. A totem animal found dead is mourned and buried like a member of the clan. If a totem animal had to be killed, it was done with a prescribed ritual of excuses and ceremonies of expiation. The tribe expected protection and forbearance from its totem. If it was a dangerous animal, a beast of prey or a poisonous snake, it was assumed that it would not harm, and where this assumption did not come true, the person attacked was expelled from the tribe. Frazer thinks that oaths were originally ordeals, many tests as to descent and genuineness being in this way left to the decision of the totem. The totem helps in case of illness and gives the tribe premonitions and warnings. The appearance of the totem animal near a house was often looked upon as an announcement of death. The totem had come to get its relative. A member of a clan seeks to emphasize his relationship to the totem in various significant ways. He imitates an exterior similarity by dressing himself in the skin of the totem animal, by having the picture of it tattooed upon himself, and in other ways. On the solemn occasions of birth, initiation into manhood, or funeral obsequies, this identification with the totem is carried out in deeds and words. Dances in which all the members of the tribe disguise themselves as their totem and act like it serve various magic and religious purposes. Finally, there are the ceremonies at which the totem animal is killed in a solemn manner. The social side of totemism is primarily expressed in a sternly observed commandment and in a tremendous restriction. The members of a totem clan are brothers and sisters, pledged to help and protect each other. If a member of the clan is slain by a stranger, the whole tribe of the slayer must answer for the murder, and the clan of the slain man shows its solidarity in the demand for expiation for the blood that has been shed. The ties of the totem are stronger than our ideas of family ties, with which they do not altogether coincide, since the transfer of the totem takes place as a rule through maternal inheritance, paternal inheritance possibly not counting at all in the beginning. But the corresponding taboo restriction consists in the prohibition against members of the same clan marrying each other or having any kind of sexual intercourse whatsoever with each other. This is the famous and enigmatic exogamy connection with totemism. We have devoted the whole first chapter of this book to it, and therefore need only mention here that this exogamy springs from the intensified incest dread of primitive races, that it becomes entirely comprehensible as a security against incest in group marriages, and that at first it accomplishes the avoidance of incest for the younger generation, and only in the course of further development becomes a hindrance to the older generation as well. To this presentation of totemism by Frazer, one of the earliest in the literature on the subject, I will now add a few excerpts from one of the latest summaries. In the Elements of the Psychology of Races, which appeared in 1912, W. Wundt says, quote, "The totem animal is considered the ancestral animal. Totem is therefore both a group name and a birth name, and in the latter aspect this name has at the same time a mythological meaning. But all these uses of the conception play into each other, and the particular meanings may recede so that in some cases the totems have become almost a mere nomenclature of the tribal divisions, while in others the idea of the descent or else the cultic meaning of the totem remains in the foreground. The conception of the totem determines the tribal arrangement and the tribal organization. These norms and their establishment in the belief and feelings of the members of the tribe account for the fact that originally the totem animal was certainly not considered merely a name for a group division, but that it usually was considered the progenitor of the corresponding division. This accounted for the fact that these animal ancestors enjoyed a cult. This animal cult expresses itself primarily in the attitude towards the totem animal, quite aside from the special ceremonies and ceremonial festivities. Not only each individual animal, but every representative of the same species, was to a certain degree a sanctified animal. The member of the totem was forbidden to eat the flesh of the totem animal, or he was allowed to eat it only under special circumstances. This is in accord with the significant contradictory phenomenon found in this connection, namely, that under certain conditions there was a kind of ceremonial consumption of the totem flesh. But the most important social side of this totemic tribal arrangement consists in the fact that it was connected with certain rules of conduct for the relations of the groups with each other. The most important of these were the rules of conjugal relations. This tribal division is thus connected with an important phenomenon which first made its appearance in the totemic age, namely with exogamy." If we wish to arrive at the characteristics of the original totemism by sifting through everything that may correspond to later development or decline, we find the following essential facts. The totems were originally only animals and were considered the ancestors of single tribes. The totem was hereditary only through the female line. It was forbidden to kill the totem or to eat it, which under primitive conditions amounts to the same thing. Members of a totem were forbidden to have sexual intercourse with each other. It may now seem strange to us that in the Code de Totemisme, which Reinach has drawn up, the one principal taboo, namely exogamy, does not appear at all, while the assumption of the second taboo, namely the descent from the totem animal, is only casually mentioned. Yet Reinach is an author to whose work in this field we owe much, and I have chosen his representation in order to prepare us for the differences of opinion among the authors, which will now occupy our attention. Section 2. The more convinced we became that totemism had regularly formed a phase of every culture, the more urgent became the necessity of arriving at an understanding of it and of casting light upon the riddle of its nature. To be sure, everything about totemism is in the nature of a riddle. The decisive questions are the origin of the totem, the motivation of exogamy, or rather of the incest taboo which it represents, and the relation between the two, the totem organization and the incest prohibition. The understanding should be at once historical and psychological. It should inform us under what conditions this peculiar institution developed and to what psychic needs of man it has given expression. The reader will certainly be astonished to hear from how many different points of view the answer to these questions has been attempted and how far the opinions of expert investigators vary. Almost everything that might be asserted in general about totemism